Your brain is not so much of an inhibitory structure when you're a child before it's fully developed. Wordsworth said about children, "There was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth, and every common sight, to me did seem apparelled in celestial light. The glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn wheresoever I may, by night or day. The things which I have seen, I now can see no more. Earth fills her lap with pleasures of her own, yearnings she hath in her own natural kind, and even with something of a mother's mind, and no unworthy aim. The homely nurse doth all she can to make her foster child her inmate. Man forget the glories he hath known, and that imperial palace whence he came." And what Wordsworth means by this is that as you develop as a competent adult, which is precisely the direction towards which you should develop, much of what you're doing is actually closing in and narrowing. You're closing in and narrowing towards a particular goal and a particular way of being. And that's necessary because as you develop, you have to develop towards a particular way of being, or you don't develop at all, and you can't stay a child forever. That goes sour of its own accord. And so human beings are destined to close their perceptions in, to sharpen themselves and to focus on very little so that they can at least do that. But the price we pay for that is that we start to replace the relationship we have with untrammeled reality with the shadows that are only complex enough to let us do what we need to do and no more. And in some sense, although we become more competent, in other ways we become more blind. And we kind of know how this happens. It happens from the bottom up. Now, this is a Magritte painting, and the painting has an obvious meaning in a sense, which is that we're blinded even to what's right in front of us by the objects that we see. And we think that seeing is letting in the light, but it's only letting in a very small fraction of the light because we're only capable of contemplating a small fraction of everything whenever we're doing any particular thing. And so very much of what we're doing is screening things out. Very much of your cortex is inhibitory. And Magritte is trying to get at that with that idea. It's like there's a businessman there. He's dressed in his uniform. He can't see beyond the immediate thing that's in front of his eyes. How does that happen? Well, let's say you're a baby. The first thing you build your body from the bottom up. You build your perceptual and action structures from the bottom up. You learn to move your arm. You learn to close your hand. Then you learn to do things that are practical with those abilities. You lift a spoon. Well, you have to do that to feed yourself. You learn to move a plate. You learn to set the table. That's starting to become social now because you can set the table for you and for other people. You learn to make a meal. That's a more complex sequencing of motor activities and perceptual abilities that's very focused. So it looks like we're wired to lose what we had, to specialize. But then once we're specialized, to reopen. Once we've got the skills built into our body and then can handle reality because we're more adapted and more fluid and more flexible, then we can start opening the doors again. And I believe that your nervous system is set up to help you do that if you don't interfere with it, if you notice. And you notice that by paying attention to the things that manifest themselves to you, that shine forth as interesting. They grab you. T.S. Eliot said something about this. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. And that's a 5-line summary of the most remarkable elaboration of the nature of the relationship between the individual human consciousness and reality itself that's ever been penned, and the culmination of a system of thought that's been developing over thousands and thousands of years, which we have lost and cannot properly articulate. Follow what you're interested in. It'll take you to adversity, and then through it, it'll transform you from a citizen into an individual, and then the doors will open again. And at that point, you're strong enough to have your life. And at that point, you're strong enough not to fall prey to pathological belief systems and work towards the destruction of things. Thank you.